Well, hello, how are you? I hope that you're having a wonderful day. It is Friday, May the 2nd, and I am getting started with my weekly webcast, Ask Vonnie. My name is Vonnie Judge. I have been a real estate instructor for about 11 years, have been in real estate for about 23 years. And this particular session each week that I will have on Friday is because as an instructor, I'm always asked all these different questions, and so I felt like having a platform to being able to share with you some of my insights, some of the things that are coming, some of the things that are happening. And because my school, Comps Academy, has Comps News, which is a publication that our school has to kind of keep our students engaged on what's coming. But real estate is an ongoing change, which means that what happened last week, last month, last year is very different. So this particular platform will allow me to be able to talk about some of the things that I am seeing, hearing, and it also allows for individuals to be able to join me. If in case if one Friday morning, if you from 10:30 to 11 a.m., 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, if you would love to join, again, you can click to go to the website www.axfonny.com, and it takes you straight into this particular session and meeting with me. I will always say to join early so that way we can get started early and work out any kinks. This morning, I had to work out kinks in order to get started. So this again, I will be recording these sessions. Today, I do not have anyone because it's again, I just announced it on Monday and said, hey, I'm going to be doing this on Friday. So again, having someone to come join me today would have been excellent, but the show must go on. So again, I will be having this, uploading our videos up to our YouTube channel, Comps Academy. It is new. So again, just in case if you haven't seen it or, again, you haven't heard of it because it's new. It's just hot off the press. So again, questions, you can send questions again at questions@compsacademy.com, or you can always visit our website, compsnews.com, where you can actually send questions through our website. So again, let's get started talking about some of the topics that I want to address and see how much we can get through today. So kind of with presentation, kind of in case of in the future, if you decide to join, I just want to make sure that people know as they come in that participant understands that we are recording. Today, you're not actually seeing me on camera. That's intentional. But again, normally if I have, individuals who are coming, I will like to be, visually available to them. So again, I will be more on camera, but because it's just me and you hear my voice, again, hopefully it's enough for you to be able to say, okay, yes, let me get the information and let me come back next week and maybe I will join. This is an opportunity, but I just want to also let you know to be on time. I will start, letting people in about 10:15, 10:30, trying to work out all the kinks so that way at 10:40 we are actually recording. We're, making sure that we are on schedule. Also, we want to make sure that we work out any technical issues prior to the start of the session. And I'm not going to allow people to come in and join the session after it starts. And if by case, if you lose connection and are, kind of booted off, of the platform, I apologize in advance. However, I'm not going to let anyone in because again, it could be a distraction, and especially since we're recording. And of course, be respectful about your language. I know it sounds weird. Why do we even have to put that out there? Because again, it's going to be on the internet. And so you want to make sure you are professionals because again, in this sessions, I'm generally art and, expecting professionals, but I could be that, have individuals who are just interested in real estate and they come in and they wanting to learn more about what we do, how we do it, how to pass their exams or whatever the case may be. But again, remember, it is a professional platform, so therefore we want to be professional. Again, we mute all mics when the people are coming in, and also while we're in the actual live settings, that we are going to mute all of our mics, and then also to remove any distractions from our background, and be mindful what you say, because again, it is recorded. So again, we have to be lawful, we have to be thoughtful in our conversation, and making sure that we do not break any rules, laws. And if I say, you know what, that's just enough for right now, because it may be because of a situation that you're saying something that violates a law or rule, and you may not realize that you're doing so. So again, when we have live individuals who comes in and joins us, this is where we're going to use either the chat, again, to be able to answer questions, as well as using the raise hand features that is in our Zoom, because again, I'm utilizing Zoom to be able to broadcast. And then also be respectable and respectful to others, because again, some people may not know things. Again, just because you know it doesn't mean that everyone else knows it. That's why we're here. We're here to ask Vonnie. So again, you may wonder, why did I start this? Again, as I said, I'm in real estate, things change. But one of the things that I get the pleasure of doing as a real estate instructor is actually, being with individuals who come from all types of background, who are in real estate, who's just starting real estate, 20 years in, 25 years in. I think I had one young lady, she was like 46 years in real estate. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you should be teaching these classes. But one of the things that is so true, again, because of all the changes that happens, we are always wondering, okay, well, what is that rule? And how does this impact what I'm doing? Or again, how is this law coming about? Again, and where do I go to answer all these questions? Normally, if I'm in a pre-licensing class, I will say, go to your broker in charge. Your in charge should be your go-to person when it comes to real estate. But a lot of times, again, I have more and more individual who call who calls me and say, "Hey, Vonnie," or they send me an email. They will inbox me. They will get on my social media to find me. So I felt like this will be a great opportunity to be able to, again, at least on a weekly basis, to engage questions that I may have. Again, today I don't have an audience. However, I do have digital requests. Again, things that I have talked to individuals about, and they're like, you know what, I really don't understand this. Can you help me out? So I'm going to go through some of my digital sent questions. Again, you can contact me through the website, compsnews.com or compsacademy.com, and get to the Comps News section or the Ask Vonnie section. By email, again, questions at compsnews.com. You can send in your questions, but I'm pretty sure if you're trying to find me, I am not hard to be found, because people are, they are finding me again in various places. So the first question I wanted to, kind of address this morning is about the South Carolina law. Law, the license aspect. So South Carolina, again, I had a question about which license is best to start my real estate career. So South Carolina has two types of license type that you can start your real estate career in. Either you can do property management, where you can manage and lease property, or you can be an associate. Under associate, you can do everything that a property manager can do, such as the leasing and managing of rentals, but also you can help with sales and listing homes. You can do auctions, you can do the exchanges. So there's much more that you can do under the associate license. So it just depends on what you're wanting to do to get started. Do you just want to do the management part of property where you're collecting the rent and working with tenants and landlords? Or do you want to have a larger opportunity to be able to do multiple types of services and under your license? So if that is what you're wanting to do, then maybe the associate will be much more beneficial. So that way you can be able to do everything, as far as, in your career. And you may decide again, as you get into it, that you may just only want to work with buyers. You may just want to work with seller, or you may just say, hey, you know what, I really do like this property management side, but because I have an associate license, I can refer and still get a listing of a property and still be able to be compensated. So again, the associate license for South Carolina has many more opportunities for you to do more with your license compared to property management. So you may wonder, why would someone ever even want a property management license? A lot of times when I'm teaching property management classes, it's because you may have individuals who are already in that field and they're trying to advance their career in property management, and they need a license. And so it makes sense. Or you may have an investor who they're just into buying their own property, managing their own property, and therefore that's what they're wanting to do. And so therefore that's what allows them to be able to, make more money on the side by managing other investors' property. So that is a good question. So again, it kind of starts off, what do you want to do? What is your end game? And so again, property management may be ideal, or an associate license may be more what you're interested in doing. So question number two, is it better to start with North Carolina license or a South Carolina license? And it goes back to almost like question number one. It depends on what you're trying to do. If you are getting a North Carolina license, I will tell you it is a very it's challenging. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's a little challenging, but if you get through the courses, get through the class, and that is what you're wanting to do, because it makes more sense for you to take a North Carolina license because you're not even close to being in South Carolina or have any interest of being a South Carolina licensee, then getting your North Carolina license makes so much sense, right? If I'm in Raleigh, or if I'm in, Wilmington or something like that nature, again, being close to South Carolina, it may not necessarily be. But because we are, again, in our area, we're close to that South Carolina, North Carolina border, it is definitely a question that I see that more and more students have, because they're like, what do I do? Do I go this way or that way? And so I always say to them, it depends on what you're wanting to do. Again, if you're wanting to start with the North, kudos for you. If you want to start with the South, let me explain how the South work, going from South to North. South Carolina, as I said to you before, again, you're going to get an associate license again, and from there, once you have completed your hours and your examination, you can go back over to North Carolina and bypass taking another exam. So going from South to North allows for you to take one state board exam. But if you go from North to South, meaning if you start with North Carolina, then you say, hey, I think I want to get my South Carolina. That means you're going to take a state board exam for North Carolina as well as South Carolina. So again, it just depends on where you are, what makes sense for you, and then two, how many exams do you want to take? So if you want to take one, which most of my students say one, please, that means that you are going to go from South Carolina to North Carolina. And so again, it just depends. So hopefully that is a good answer for individuals who are kind of debating, which one do I start with first? Then, question number three is, I want to get my South Carolina property management license. Is there a reciprocal license in North Carolina or Georgia? So this is always interesting. I have people who say, hey, I am interested in this property management license, and I want to be able to take my license and do property management in North Carolina. What do I need to do in North Carolina? Well, I will tell you right now, North Carolina and Georgia do not. They do not have a property manager license. Either you're going to be a salesperson or a broker in Georgia. And in North Carolina, they only have broker license. So South Carolina is very unique. And so if you kind of see, each state has its own rules. And so same thing, it has its own license type. So in South Carolina, they have this unique category of license when it comes to property management. And so again, if you're wanting to do property management in North Carolina, you have to go through and get a full real estate, broker license. Or in Georgia, you can go and get a full real estate salesperson's license, but there is no property management license. So just like how I explained what number two, question two, that says, again, once I get my South Carolina license as an associate, I can go back across the border. There is no going back across the border with a property management license in South Carolina, or going back across or going over the border to Georgia to get a property management license. So number four, am I required to do a background fingerprinting to renew my South Carolina license this year? So back in 2020, again, this was a very peculiar thing uh, because if you remember 2020, we remember COVID. I remember COVID, and I remember going to classes every day to you can't leave your home, where we literally went through a lockdown process. And during that time, South Carolina came up with this rule that we had to go out and get fingerprinted for our background check. And I know it's like, you're like, what? I know it was like that. So we had to go out, get fingerprinted during that time. And it was something that it was just like, I know no one saw COVID coming. So again, when they made this rule, they didn't see it coming. And every third renewal. So in South Carolina, we renew our license every 2 years. And we're going to be talking about renewals in a minute, but we renew every 2 years. And so what happened was that year, everyone, regardless of, what your renewal status was, you're getting fingerprinted. So if you think about it, again, every 2 years, times three, that means six. So that means that we should be in 2026-ish when we're taking or doing our background fingerprinting again. So I have had students who's asked again this a very peculiar question. Again, I can understand. Our fingerprints does not change over time, and again, I can't even argue with that. Again, scientifically, I will say you're absolutely right. And so why do I have to do this every three, renewals? I don't make the rules. I just want my license. And so if I'm going to renew it and be active and be under the good grace of South Carolina until they say, you know what, Vonnie, you do not have to do this. I'm going to be out there with my finger out every every third renewal to be sure I keep my license. So we will see how it will kind of look in our maybe next year or so, to see whether or not if they're going to be requiring it, or whether or not if we have the opportunity to wait another period. Last but not least, when it comes to our questions, the question is, I'm licensed in Florida, so I have a Florida licensee, and they want to get their North Carolina and South Carolina licenses. So what do I do? So this is it's a very loaded question. So I'm going to break it down a little at a time. So in North Carolina, as long as you have a license in another state, which is why, again, if I would get my South Carolina license first and then I go back to North Carolina, they don't call it a reciprocity, but this gives you the opportunity to not take the North Carolina exam. So if I was a Floridian, licensee, and I want to get my North Carolina license, I will go do my paperwork and get my North Carolina license, right? So that's an easy thing. But South Carolina does not have reciprocity with Florida. It has a reciprocity kind of relationship with North Carolina as well as with Georgia. And the way it works, it depends on, again, especially for North Carolina, it depends on your license type. So you may want to go to the South Carolina real estate website, see exactly what that looks like, so that way you can understand based upon my North Carolina license status and what license classification I am, what do I need to do to get my, to get a license in South Carolina. But for Florida, going back to my question, this means that South Carolina may make them, again, complete the South Carolina examination. So again, they may have to take pre-licensing. South Carolina doesn't have post-licensing. You may have to take the pre-licensing courses and then be able to sit for your state board exam. So again, I know a lot of time people come from different places and they're like, I have been licensed for umpteen years, and why do I have to take pre-licensing again if I am just, having to take the South Carolina portion of the exam? And only thing I can say to them is that I am the messenger. I'm not the one who create or can explain. I am just here to help you to navigate. So again, that is how you will be able to do it. So North Carolina, you'll be able to do paperwork and pay a fee. South Carolina, you're going to more likely have to do classes, complete classes, as well as an examination. So hopefully that gives you some, it makes you have more questions. Again, I don't know, but hopefully I've answered these questions. And if you have questions, again, you can always reach out to questions at Comps News. And who knows, again, next week when I'm doing this, again, whether I have a live audience or whether I'm just alone, you will be able to maybe see one if you want, 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 if you want. But these topics are, I will say, is the, these are the things that I feel that we need to talk about, because there's a lot of conversation, there's some confusion about it. And so I want to, make sure that I give you an opportunity to at least hear it and go and find your own information on it, so that way you can be able to be much more knowledgeable about it. So question number or subject number one is the renewals. So our school is uniquely positioned. We're licensed to offer classes in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. That's why you see me talking about Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, because those are our three states that we are authorized to offer education. Georgia, we've had for a while, but have not done as much with it until recently. And you'll see why in a minute, why all of a sudden we're like, we may need to talk about Georgia. And then also the South Carolina license exam. So we're going to start with, topic one. And I broke this down based upon each state. And I would encourage you to go to each of the Real Estate Commission sites, to get more information, so that way you can be much more knowledgeable. But I get this question all the time. Why? Because in North Carolina and South Carolina, June 30th is a very important date for us, for the license holder. We are looking at, renewal. Again, we are renewing our license. In North Carolina, we renew our license every year. So every year we have a mandatory 8 hours of continuing education that is required. And back in July of 2023, again, 2023, this is where North Carolina removed the non-resident exemption. What that means is that once upon a time, before July 1st of 2023, if you lived in Florida, if you lived in Texas or California or where Ohio, wherever you were, and you're like, listen, I have this North Carolina license. And but I have all of my license. I've completed all my license requirement in the state that I live in. So it was once upon a time that North Carolina said, okay, you're a non-resident, so no problem. It's as long as you complete all of your education requirement in the state that you live, then we will allow for you to have the exemption and be able to not complete, you're not required to complete the 8 hours of continuing education in our state. However, now that again, since this time period, this new law has to take place, that has been removed, and now no matter where you are, what time zone you are in, you are going to be required to complete the 8 hours of CE. So most of us, again, we're like, okay, some of us were already kind of marching to the drum of that, but it took a lot of people by surprise. And now this year, I think is, people are like, okay, I know I'm going to have to take this again. Last year I goofed and I didn't realize that was a new law, a new rule, and so now I know, so I'm going to do better, and kudos for you. So the 8 hours is required, and it's broken down based upon your license type. So as I said to you before, North Carolina is a broker state. Everybody has a broker classification of license. It's just different. A PB is a provisional broker. Again, this is kind of like the bottom level, the entry level of your licensing type, and a provisional broker, and then a full broker. A full broker is, again, someone who was once a provisional broker, completed their post-licensing course, and now is at a broker status. A big eligible, again, those are brokers in charge, again, individuals who've been full brokers for 2 years or more and have taken additional classes to be able to be a big eligible, which means that they're not the broker in charge of a firm, but if the broker in charge says, hey, Vonnie, today's your day. You're going to be the broker in charge while I go on vacation or I go and have surgery. So the big eligible status allows for me to be eligible to step into the broker in charge shoes, and the broker in charge, or the BIC, is the person who is in charge. So again, hopefully that explains the different licensing types, the 4 licensing type in North Carolina. But as a PB or a broker, you have to complete a mandatory Gen Up class and any 4 elective hours that you find interesting. So the thing about North Carolina, the Gen Up class, again, requires it to be live, meaning it can be Zoomed, it can be in person kind of learning, but it must be live instructions. You have to actually be there physically, again, based upon the time zone that those courses are provided. But again, so no matter where you are, again, you're going to have to tune into a Gen Up class, which is the mandatory class for a provisional broker or a broker. And if you are a BIC eligible or a broker, this is where you have to take the BIC-up. The BIC-up is the mandatory course is for that license status, plus any 4 elective hours of your choice. And again, North Carolina has this very unique law that says that on June 10th, again, that is the deadline of CEs, which means on June 11th, that means there's a blackout period, which means that, again, there's no continuing education courses are allowed being provided, whether it's self-paced, in person, Zoomed, it is a blackout. So you have to complete all of your continuing education hours by June 10th in order to, by on July 1st, to be able to continue to have an active license. And then when it comes to the renewal, again, paying your renewal fees. This is in processing your renewal. Again, that is on May 15th, which is right around the block. Again, it's essentially for your for time frame is right there. So we're very close when it comes to renewing. And right now we are very busy with continuing education classes, questions about CEs. So hopefully this breaks it down. So regardless of where you are, if you have a North Carolina license, guess what you're going to be doing? You're going to be doing your 8 hours. And based upon your license type, this is where you will know which one you are required to do, your mandatory update classes. On the other hand, South Carolina. South Carolina also, they follow North Carolina. They removed their non-resident exemption, which means if you have a South Carolina license, they don't care where you are. You can be. I remember having a student from Alaska. She was like, "I have a South Carolina license, and I have to take my class." And it was so awesome to have people from all over chiming in. But this is where it is required for you to complete your license requirements for South Carolina. What is the licensing requirement or continuing education requirements to maintain an active license in South Carolina? It is 10 hours of continuing education, and we do ours every 2 years in the South. So every year in the North, 8 hours and 10 hours of CE of again every other year in the South. So in South Carolina, it is for an associate and a broker. Again, if you're an associate or a broker, you have 4 hours of the South Carolina core class. The South Carolina core class is a course that, similar to the Gen Up and the Bic Up class that is in North Carolina, is a mandatory course that is required by all licensees. And then there are 6 hours of elective. And then also, if you are a broker in charge, that means that you have to take that 4 hour South Carolina core class, plus you have a 4 hours broker in charge mandatory class, and plus any other 2 elective hours. In South Carolina, they do allow all the way to June 30th to complete continuing education. And again, paying your renewal fees has started already since April 1st. And so if you wanted to learn more, see more, or to renew, you hopefully should have, again, received, if you have a license, you have, received a email. And if not, you can go to the South Carolina Real Estate Commission to actually look into seeing more information. And last but not least, so Georgia's on my mind. Again, we have just recently started to do and get courses approved for in-person Zoom classes for Georgia. And I'm so grateful that yesterday when I checked, as well as today as I checked, that we have one of our mini courses that we've already submitted to Georgia approved to be able to be provided. So again, this is a great thing. We were, again, we've been in Georgia since 2022, but we were more focused on the online self-paced classes. And now that we have an online partner that covers 48 states and again, as self-paced classes, we've kind of went away from, what do we do with Georgia? But now, now, again, starting July 1st of this year, 2025, there is going to be there's a new requirement for brokers, individuals who have broker license. So in Georgia, there's two types of license types. Well, there are three, but there's two that we're going to focus on. There's a salesperson's license, and then there's the broker license. So the salespersons, again, this new law does not affect their license. However, for those who hold broker license, there is, again, starting on July 1st, there will be a 18-hour of broker CE that is required for any renewal after October 31st. And so again, in Georgia, they renew their license every 4 years, and they have 36 hours that they have to complete during those 4 years' time. And the other unique thing about Georgia, it is like they have a running calendar, meaning that South Carolina, North Carolina, we are always thinking about June 30th, right? Every year or every other year, right? Depending on the state. In Georgia, this 4 years, again, is based upon the license issue time. So if I got issue a license today, that means I'm looking at 4 years from to the ending of the month of when I need to renew my license. And then if Molly got a license, last month, again, she's looking at 4 years. So all the renewal again of licensing, it's kind of like a rolling calendar because everyone renews at different times, which I think is so interesting. How do you keep up with that? Again, with South Carolina, North Carolina, keeping that June 30th in their head is really difficult. So again, knowing that if you have a broker license, salesperson's license in the state of Georgia, that you are going to have to keep yourself, hey, what today is? Has it been 4 years? Because that's exactly what I had to do when I went to look at our school's renewal time. Again, I was like, well, how much time do we have? Again, when did we start this process? When did we get the license issue? When do we renew? Again, it is kind of like keeping up. So again, CE deadlines, again, you can complete it. From my understanding, CEs, you want to do them early. And, but basically they don't have a cutoff time, but they have said that there have been people who waited till the last date and they found themselves, their license being expired because they waited till the last minute. So you have 4 years, people. Get it together. No, but I understand things happen, and like I said, for us, we've been, we've had our license since 2022, but again, just now picking it back up and saying, hey, we need to do in-person classes. How long do we need, and how long do we have? So again, this is something that is very interesting. The other interesting thing is, when it comes to renewal, again, they have 120 days before the expiration date that they can start renewing their license, 120 days before their expiration date. So this new law that they have with the broker CEs, for those who have a broker's license, anyone who renews after October 31st of this year, they're going to have to complete the 18 broker CE hours. There's no getting around it. That's what it is. That is for what is required. And so therefore that is what it is. So those who are, again, their license expiring July 31st, again, they don't have to complete it because they are able to do so. Again, they have this grace period of the 120 days. So again, it starts in effect July 1st. And so again, reminding individuals who are renewing their expiration of their license is after October 31st, that they are on the hook for the 18 broker hours. You can go to the Georgia Real Estate Commission to find schools. Again, when we get ours up and going and get our broker CE classes approved and our regular continuing education classes approved, again, you'll hear more and more and more. But again, right now, we're just in the process of doing the baby steps. So that is the renewal, again, process in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Again, if you have license in multiple states, which I am finding more and more and more, again, as I am telling people, yeah, we're licensed in North, South, and Georgia, they're like, so am I. So again, as keeping all of these time frames, dates, and requirements up to date, again, it is definitely a challenge. It is a challenge, but it's doable. It is a doable thing. So let's go to hot topic number 2, which is the South Carolina real estate exam. So I know that Very recent. Well, I wouldn't say it's last year. Again, it was July of 2024, where there were some changes to the South Carolina exam. So I have had students who've called and say, "Hey, do you remember me? I took your class on this date, and I'm ready to take my exam." And or I've taken my exam and I can't pass it. I don't understand why. One, loss change. Again, we last year we had so many different major changes in South Carolina. So again, we have had law changes. The other thing that we have had is again the emphasis that they have put on different question types. Again, such as contract questions. Agency questions, there are more percentages. Again, they have put more weight on those kinds of questions to make sure licensees understand. But also, again, if you are able to, again, I put in here, there's a PSI. PSI is basically they're authorized to provide the testing for South Carolina Real Estate Commission. So they are the institution that oversees and makes sure that, when you go to the testing facilities and you're registering, this is where you're registering. I had the hardest time finding the bulletin. The bulletin is it is basically for test takers where you can actually see what is the percentage, where they're asking questions from. If they say, "Hey, you didn't do very well in understanding agency," then you can go under that section that they reference on your printouts to see exactly what does that mean in detail, subject matters. So again, I heard that they are even adding more testing sites to their location. So that is something great. Is something great to have. So again, I will say if you're taking the South Carolina exam, to go and get this bulletin. I will make sure that when I'm setting up all this information that I am going to add it to make sure that you can get it on the Comps News um, YouTube channel, so that way you can be able to have it. Um, there's so much going on in real estate. So I'm pretty sure am trying to think about everything that I can tell you without giving you too much information overload. So I will be here next week, next Friday. Again, our Fridays, again, we started today, May 2nd, again from 10 to 11:30, and it's about 11:30, almost there. I started a little bit late today because I had technical difficulties, but it happens, and that's why I say, again, you can possibly have technical difficulties. So get here early. Let's work it out so that way we can make sure that most of our time is productive. But I will hopefully I have kind of sent you a subliminal message to subscribe to the Comps News YouTube channel. Again, to reach out at questions at Comps News, or to follow us at compsnews.com. Again, next week I will be talking about kickstarting your real estate career. People are always asking again about cost. Again, I had a young lady who called me. It's like, "Why are your school so expensive?" I'm like, "Girl, I'm worth it." But but again, strategies on passing your exams. And then also again, also in May, again, I will give a update of where we are in our broker CE classes, and and then I will probably have some other additional things that I will have under my hot topics. But hopefully this was informative and that you learned something, because that's always my goal. I always ask my students, did you learn something with me? And if you enjoyed listening to me, again, I don't know, some people say that they do. You can always, like I said, reach out, join me next week. I will be here and we'll talk real estate. But I thank you so much, and hopefully you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Thank you.